How y'all doing tonight? Yeah? You excited not to have any masks on here for the most part? Yeah. No one's more excited than me, trust me. If I wear a mask with these glasses, I look like a hipster burglar, you know? Like I'm gonna break into your apartment and steal your screenplay or something, you know? Oh, this is cool. I say stuff, and it comes up here. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, it's working. Hi, I'm Jeff Greenspan. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it through the first day of Beyond Tellerrand. Let's hear it for all the speakers that you saw so far today, please. Yeah, very good. And let's give it up for this beautiful host city, Düsseldorf. Home of Kraftwerk. Hey, yeah. Who just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so that's pretty cool. And let's give it up for your host, Mark. Okay, that's enough about Mark. Back to me, all right? So, I don't know Photoshop. By the way, I apologize for my face. Not that one, this one. I usually have a beard, and the beard is really the only thing that keeps the face together. But in the States, I'm a comedian, and for Halloween, I was asked to perform in costume, so I went as Jeff Bezos. This costume is 100% authentic, and that I'm completely dead and empty on the inside. So it's so thanks for joining us here as we're going to have a talk. As Mark was saying, I was kind of last minute. I'm going to just, well, I'll tell you in a little bit, but I'll tell you now. Here's the truth. I wasn't anybody's first choice. It's kind of the story of my life. Somebody dropped out or died. I don't know what happened. And he said, are you spontaneous? He said, it's my middle name. My middle name is actually Ira. It's very Jewy. It's a very Jewish name, Ira. But spontaneous, I like that. That's good. It's a good middle name. So this talk is the pandemic didn't kill you, so now what? By the way, congratulations for not, succumbing. Yeah. So how many people have kind of a before and after pandemic life here? Yeah? Okay. So a lot of us have probably been through some pretty profound changes. I have too, and I'm going to just talk you through a journey that I went through, and hopefully it's useful to other people who are still grappling with pivoting through an ever-changing world. Before I get into the nuts and bolts, just give you a little bit of background. I spent about 20 years working in the advertising industry. Here are some of the agencies that I've worked for, and here are some of the logos that I worked for. 20 years in advertising, I made all my money telling lies. So many lies. Everything I'm wearing was bought with lies. Every meal I've ever eaten was bought with lies. And now I'm trying to do comedy and tell the truth, and I've never been more broke. There's no money in the truth. Go into lies. All right, that's, if you take anything away from this day. And so after working in advertising for a long time, I went to go work at Facebook. I didn't know about the Russian threat. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, it's Meta. I'm sorry, I forgot. It's not Facebook. I'm terrible at Photoshop. People ask me, did you know about the Russian threat? I worked at Facebook. When I worked at Facebook, the biggest threat was Google+. It was a very long time ago. I used to work with Mark Zuckerberg, and one day he said to me, you have amazing solutions to problems I don't have. Here's what he said that to me about. I had worked for about 3 months with some engineers to create an opposite button for Facebook, so that when you hit it, It would repopulate your newsfeed to show you the stories and articles from the people you had the least ideologically in common with but were still friends with. This was in 2012 when you could be friends with people you didn't agree with. It was a million years ago. And he goes, why would you make something like this? And I said, well, our data is showing us that people are moving into smaller and smaller circles of influence. They're getting their information from fewer and fewer points, and that could be pretty dangerous for society. I had amazing solutions to problems he didn't have. It's very intimidating being in a room with a genius, which is how I guess he must have felt when I presented ideas to him. I don't know. After Facebook, the resume gets worse. I went to go work at BuzzFeed. Yeah, you could just toss me out right now. I'm sorry. BuzzFeed is a website that's known for listicles. These are articles in the form of a list, like 13 ways you know you're a virgin, things like that. I would argue after the first way, there's a lot of fluff on that list. They fired me. This isn't even why they fired me. I tried to publish Schindler's Listicle. 23 adorable Jews you won't believe survived. So, hey, my middle name is Ira. I can get away with it. Watch it. And the way I got these jobs was by doing projects that were pretty shared widely on the internet. One of them was hipster traps. These... Thank you. These were bear traps that I set out around New York City, and they were baited with things that hipsters like. These were made of cardboard. They look very real. No children or hipsters were hurt. And hipsters are just... They're too thin. They'll just slip right through, And then my projects got a bit more political. I had worked with another creative partner to have a statue of Edward Snowden made, and we had cemented it into the middle of a park in New York City. This was cemented on top of a pillar that is part of a memorial to those who lost their lives during the American Revolutionary War, and the idea was to try to fuse these two narratives together. Here's a little clip from the news, if it plays.
By midday, the sculpture was covered in blue tarp and removed by the Parks Department. You can see NYPD detectives here behind me. This is now technically a crime scene. Investigators will be looking for DNA and other...
Wait 1 second. How do I get the volume up? Who's in charge of volume here? Okay, well, we'll try it again. 1 second, guys. We'll have to be quiet.
By midday, the sculpture was covered in blue tarp and removed by the Parks Department. You can see NYPD detectives here behind me. This is now technically a crime scene. Investigators will be looking for DNA and other clues to find out who's behind this. The idea of a crime angering some in the crowd, just proving the display wasn't a total bust.
Who decided to take it down? Who decided that we couldn't see that? That's art. It should be allowed to be seen.
The Parks Department would only say any unapproved artwork here is illegal and handed that sculpture over to the NYPD. So far, no arrests. In Fort Greene Park, Lori Bordenaro, News 4, New York.
I like how they were looking for DNA, like I just pleasured myself all over the statue or something. I mean, Edward's hot, but not that hot, And then after the statue was taken away, some other artists, without our collaboration, went and reinstalled it as a hologram. They had scanned it while it was still up there. Eventually, a very well-known attorney fought for us and got it back from the NYPD. Here it is being returned to us, and it eventually wound up in the Brooklyn Museum, which is a pretty prestigious museum in New York City. Some other projects I had worked on was something called the Captured Project, where I had people in prison draw portraits of people me and my creative partner thought should be in prison, which are the heads of corporations kind of destroying the world. Here's the head of Pfizer here, and each portrait was displayed with two lists of crimes: the crimes committed by the incarcerated artist and the crimes committed by the company. Here's the head of Chevron, and here's the head of Monsanto. And then got a lot of press. Here are the Koch brothers. Only one of them's still with us now. And eventually we made a book. We made 1,000 books. We sold them online. We sold out in a week. We made about $13,000, and we gave all the money to this guy. Thank you, thanks. And so, you know, in the course of doing these projects, well, I'm trying to think, I guess I'm going to share this now. I went through a pretty bad psychological point. I was very, very depressed, and it was getting to be almost as bad as it can get when you get depressed. And I was seeing some doctors, and I was trying different medications, and I said to myself, well, let me also try to take some classes in things that are really outside my comfort zone to try to jumpstart my brain into a different direction. I took a Spanish class, I took a jiu-jitsu class, and I took a stand-up comedy class. I got my windpipe crushed in jiu-jitsu. Can't even tell you my pencil is yellow in Spanish anymore. But I've been doing stand-up comedy ever since that day I took that class for 5 years now in a row. Almost every single day I've been doing stand-up until COVID. And I eventually got a little bit a clip on Netflix. Can I show you a little clip of some stand-up? We'll see if the sound works. We'll see here if it works. When someone laughs, even if it's just one person, you know that someone gets you. You know, and when everyone in the room is laughing, then they get each other, and you've created community on some level. But when nobody laughs, it's like, whoa, this is something so personal and so intimate, and you've rejected me. Part of comedy is learning just to move through the rejection, because you can't just stop when people don't laugh.
It's easy to get depressed or anxious in the world that we're living in right now. A lot of that is due to Donald Trump. He wants us to fear everything. Even Mexicans. He tells us that Mexicans are going to take our jobs. Let me tell you something. Mexicans are not going to take your jobs. Robots are going to take your jobs. And once the robots have all the jobs, trust me, Mexican robots are going to take their jobs. Lazy Mexican robots.
And so,
sleeping on the factory floor.
So I've been doing stand-up steadily, and this is a guy named Shahak Shapir. He's a comedian in Berlin. He's pretty well known in Germany. And you guys know him? Yeah, very cool. So right before the pandemic, we had a thing that we were going to do. We were going to swap apartments, flats, whatever y'all call it. Y'all, I've been in Tennessee too long. And so I was going to take his apartment and do all the shows that he usually does, and he was going to take my apartment in Brooklyn and do all the shows I usually do. And the New York Times thought this was a really interesting cultural exchange, and they were going to do a whole piece on it. And I had my ticket to go to Berlin, and then the pandemic hit. And so everything was canceled. And so I wound up just staying in a 640 square foot apartment in Brooklyn. It's a nice place, but it's pretty small if you're there 24/7 by yourself, no pets, no roommate, no significant other. And I was kind of, losing my mind. And I was trying to do things to kind of stay engaged. We tried to do a comedy show from the balcony of the apartment. We had a whole bunch of people hanging out the windows. We called it Captive Audience. That was the name of the show. And the admission was just one roll of toilet paper or a smile. So it was pretty reasonable. I thought, But then it was getting very cold, and life really slowed down, and I was trapped in that apartment. I kind of went from being Jeff Greenspan to a kind of different version of myself. And I was really losing my mind. I had no job, I had no shows, I had no reason to really get out of bed, I had no schedule, and so often at times I didn't get out of bed at all, and I really had no connection to anybody else. So in a way to try to save myself from insanity, I said, let me try to do something that is both positive and gives some structure to my day. And so I created something called Quarantime, where I offered anybody 15 to 30-minute sessions on Zoom to help them with anything I could help them with. A lot of people wanted to maybe get their own personal projects off the ground, and I had shared with you a few of the ones I had done. So I thought, well, maybe I can help some other people as well. Some people just wanted to do, here's a little, you can't really see, but some people just wanted to do push-ups together over FaceTime. And that was fine if that's how they wanted to use the 15 minutes. But basically what I promised people, I'm just going to leave, I don't have a slide here for this thing. This is just me talking, so you can just, there's nothing really to look at. But what I told people was, hey, I'm probably stoned, I'm most definitely drunk, And I'm going to tell you just the truth as I see it, as a man who's losing his mind, trapped in his apartment, will tell it to you. And that seemed to connect with people. And so a lot of creative people really wanted, well, I'll tell you some of the things that they wanted. They kind of fell into a lot of buckets. There were a lot of people who just wanted to know, were they good? They wanted to show me their portfolios and tell me, is this good? Ask me if this is good. Here's a piece of stand-up. Is this good? And I would try to tell them, I go, if I don't like it, it doesn't make it bad. And if I do like it, it really doesn't make it good. But I'll give you my honest take on it. And thankfully, so many people were good. Some people were very bad. And I told them with no uncertain words. There was one person in particular. He was a copywriter. He sent me his portfolio. The portfolio was pretty lackluster, but his about page said something like, be bold, be human. I was like, you're a writer, and this is what you've come up with to sell yourself? It's pretty generic, I think. And I kind of was like ripping his work apart, and at the end he goes, thank you. Thank you so much. I kind of thought it all sucked, but no one was telling me. Everyone's kind of gaslighting me. Everyone's just so polite nowadays. I'm 51 years old. I come from a generation that was not polite. So I learned that there are a lot of creative people really, really hungry for some honest feedback. And so I gave it to them, but I encouraged them to seek out mentors, friends, colleagues that would give critical, honest feedback to each other. That was something that I saw that the creative community was really hungry for. Maybe this is something that resonates with you. Maybe you've been, I see some nods, so it was good to be able to share that with people. The other thing I noticed was a lot of people were getting in touch with me, asking in a veiled way for permission to do a project. They had an idea, and they go, well, can I do this? And I go, you mean, can you physically, mentally do it? Or they go, well, who am I to do a project like this? I go, who am I to cement a statue in the middle of a park? Who are everyone else to do anything other than just giving yourself permission to do it? Now, I don't know if the culture is different in Germany. I don't know if it's just because maybe deep down a lot of us want to please other people, but there was this thread through so much of the creative community of really needing a green light to go ahead and do something. And so if they saw me as an authority figure in some capacity, even though I was stoned and drunk from my apartment, I was happy to give them the green light to do their projects. I'm happy to hear that a lot of those people would get back in touch with me and tell me that they did move those projects forward. The other thing I noticed was a lot of people had great ideas for projects, and they knew how to get them started, but they didn't start because they would tell me, well, I don't know what I do after the first step or the second step. And I would tell them all the pitfalls of some of the projects I showed you. Hipster traps, we didn't know if they would blow away or get stolen or be noticed. The Snowden statue, we had no idea if we'd be arrested. We didn't know a lot of the pieces before we got started with all these projects. And I try to encourage everyone that I engage with through Quarantime to just do the first step that's right in front of you. So if there's a project that you want to do, it could be really terrifying to be like, well, how do I get press for it when it's done? Trust me, there's like 30 to 40 to 50 steps. I don't know if you remember, HTML code is parsed one line at a time. Projects are too. Just do the next line of code that's in front of you for your project. Don't worry about, I don't know the tags, I don't know how to call those things, but just worry about the head. So, you know. Just do the head. So, and the other thing I noticed was that a lot of creative people, and maybe it goes outside the creative community too, were really good at packaging. I work in advertising, or I used to at least, and a lot of that is packaging brands, telling the story. Story is a big word people like to use. All that really means is, you know, how do I track the trajectory of what you're about? And so many creative people in particular were really bad at doing it for themselves. They could do it for brands, they could do it for other people, but they couldn't do it themselves. It's weird. I wonder if a plumber can fix their own sink. I don't know. Maybe they can't. So it was really exciting to walk these people through all of these projects, and so hopefully some of these points that I pointed out are things that you might be able to take home and think about for yourselves as well. Some people just, on 420, one guy just wanted to get in touch with me and smoke weed together, which was fantastic. I was really happy to do that. And so this was happening over and over again. I was starting to, you know, the project got written up in Fast Company, and so I started getting booked all the time. And so it was great. I had a reason to get out of bed. I was actually helping people. I was excited to hear about other people's projects. And then it kind of got ripped off by this guy. It's kind of strange to me. I don't understand. What I love about this is his t-shirt says creator, which I think is so fantastic. Some folks on Twitter had a fun time with him. He even stole my haircut. Like, come on, dude, right? But I'm not a therapist. I'm an excellent patient, but I'm not a good therapist. And after weeks and weeks and weeks of back-to-back 15 to 30-minute increments of listening to people's anxieties and dreads about the pandemic or their careers, post-pandemic, prior pandemic, it was starting to really take a toll on me again. And there's this ad agency or creative production company in Tennessee called Humanoid. I hadn't really heard of them before, but they asked me and another comedian to come down to Tennessee, to Chattanooga, and be a comedian in residence. I said, well, what's a comedian in residence? He goes, I don't know. We'll figure it out. He said, why don't you just come down here with this other comedian that I do a lot of writing with, come down to Chattanooga, get out of this 640 square foot apartment, and let's just work on some humor-based projects. So I had never been to Tennessee in my life. I'm not a Tennessee guy. I mean, I am now. I live there now. And so when they sent us down to Tennessee, they put us in the Bode Hotel in Chattanooga. And we stayed inside a lot. We did some puzzles. I made the poor choice of buying a puzzle that's all one color. This is day 10. Here's day 50. And by day 52, I just gave up and bought another puzzle. So we were doing puzzles by day, we were working by day and doing puzzles by night. And if it's cool with you, I'd like to share with you one of the comedic projects that we developed, what two comedians could do by working with an ad agency. Are you guys familiar with the concept of roasting people? Is that a term that people use? Okay.
At Humanoid, we've always said that honesty is our secret weapon. We believe an authentic brand is one that doesn't take itself too seriously. But now we're taking our approach to brand honesty to a whole new level. There's no one more brutally honest and self-deprecating than stand-up comics.
Any chance you guys are interested in dudes who look like Vin Diesel if Vin Diesel got sick? Is that something?
But right now, comedy clubs are closed around the country because of COVID. And these days, it doesn't seem like there's very much we can all laugh about. But maybe you, the brand managers, can help these stand-up comics do what they love. And maybe your brand is something we can all laugh about. That's why we're introducing the Humanoid Brand Roast. Yeah, the comedy roast once reserved for celebrities is now available for your brand. We've teamed up with stand-up comics in New York and around the country who've lost their stage time due to COVID. They're going to mercilessly roast your brand and tear your strategy to pieces.
Hefty trash bags. They're the elephant condoms that break.
Which is just what Democrats bring to a barbecue when they want to start a fight.
You know, at least strudel got like a fancy name. Like, what the heck is a Pop-Tart?
I think it's a sign that you should stop when you lose your job to a nut.
And the Humanoid team will take their sick burns and insults and turn them into insights. For the price your agency would normally charge for a bunch of stupid banner ads, you can get genuine, honest insights that you can use to be more authentic, self-aware, and less full of complete and total shit. So mean. So please, look inside your heart and then your marketing budget. Together, we can make a difference in the world of stand-up comedy and advertising/marketing/branding forever. We've only got 10 slots, so hurry up and give these comics your money. First come, first serve. Click the link below.
So far we've done 3 of these brand roasts. We did one for National Geographic, we've done one for Goose Island Beer, and a company called New Fabrics, which distributes medicine through clothing. And the comics were able to make a good amount of money. We were able to glean some really interesting insights that turned into really valuable creative advertising work for these brands. And then this comedian in residence thing was over, and I went back to New York, and it wasn't good. I was trying to get back into my life of doing stand-up. Stand-up had been relegated to the outdoors. Here's a poster I did for one of the shows. Here's me ruining a Sunday afternoon on the Isle of La Grande Jatte. New York just really had not opened up. I was back in that 600 square foot apartment, and after doing a show where I was physically assaulted by the host, a dog ate my mask, and I got a flat tire on my bicycle riding home, the very next morning I called the manager of that Bode Hotel, and I said, can I move into that hotel? And if I did, would you let me keep comics in the other room, like it was a 2-bedroom apartment, could I keep comedians in the other room and run a comedy show in your lobby? Because we had done one comedy show when we were down there. I failed to mention this. Everyone in the hotel was kind of trapped in there, and we had a karaoke machine. And I said, hey, I got a couple comics here and a karaoke machine. Let's do a show. So we did a show for 20 hotel guests. Hotel guests are terrible audience members. They absolutely are. They haven't gotten dressed. They haven't gotten a sitter. They've made no sacrifice to be there. They just come down from their room because they want to get away from, they don't want to look at their husband or wife for about an hour. So they come down in their sweatpants and they just kind of sit there like this, you know. But I thought maybe we could make a go of it. So he said, let's try it for 3 months. So we created the Carpetbaggers Comedy Night. A carpetbagger in America is someone, it's a pejorative term against Northerners who came down from the North during Reconstruction and took advantage of the South. And that was kind of what I was doing. I was taking advantage of the openness of Tennessee. You can actually gather indoors. And we tried this show, and it was only supposed to be for, 3 or 4 months. Here it is now, a year later. The show's gotten a ton of press. And it's now a sold-out show twice a month. We've had 14 sell-out shows. And then I decided to move to Tennessee. I figured if I can do comedy here all the time, I can just pick up and move there. And one of the creators of The Daily Show, do you guys know The Daily Show? Is that a thing that you have here? He thought this was pretty interesting, and he wanted to try to package this idea of a show, the idea of a guy living in a hotel and running a comedy show. Here's a little clip of a trailer he put together. We're surviving, right? Are we doing it? I think I live here now. Literally in this hotel. I mean, I'm living in the hotel. This is a good hall. We're all helping each other. I mean, I get to have great people to talk to and different people every couple of weeks. A different roommate comes down. Both these cultures have been very interested in each other. The New Yorkers have been very interested in meeting the people from the South, and people from the South have literally opened their homes up to some of these comics.
We welcome it down in the South, and it's just a different perspective. Something else that we can observe to make our stuff better. We can learn from each other.
I like it over here, and it's fun. And most of the people that I've noticed, the audience has been coming out from Chattanooga. They're willing to listen. In New York, you got to really hang on to them. They're ready to lose you at every joke.
It's not a low-stakes game. It's real audiences, and people are paying you, and you've driven all this way. You've invested something to come down here, so you're in it. All right, very good. Now we just need to get a stool up here.
Sold out, babe. Let's do this.
Put your hands together for Joe Mahoney!
Cousin just got a sex change, and we're proud. But my mom was giving me shit because I live at home. She's like, Stacy's becoming a man, why can't you?
It continues to be this insane experiment, which was supposed to just be a couple of shows. So now my life has become kind of a sitcom. I live in a hotel and I'm running a comedy show. We all see that the more good comedy that's up on stage in Chattanooga, the better it is for Chattanooga. That's my future for comedy, at least for the next forever. So the reason I shared all these, that's a little bit, yeah. All right, sure. So the reason I shared all this with you is because, I'm 51 and I have some perspective now, and I've learned that there's a lot of similarities between all these things. The advertising arc, trying to do projects that get into museums or galleries, and now stand-up comedy. There's a lot of similarities. And I'd like to go over a couple of them because maybe it'll illuminate something that's going on in your own careers. So much of it, I feel, is about finding your own voice. It keeps you from being a commodity. It takes you from having a job, I feel, to having a career. So many people I know have trouble getting a job or keeping a job or finding a job once they've been made redundant. And they look at their portfolios or their body of work, and it's competent, but it's not different or unique enough. I look at portfolios all the time, and I don't get to see the person within the portfolio. And I find that if you can, obviously through projects that I've done and through doing the type of advertising I did, I felt like I was able to move out of the pack and continually work because my stuff was different enough. But I don't know what they're teaching in schools nowadays, but most of the books I see seem very, very similar to each other. And I don't know if there's an adversity to risk, but I think as creative people, and or anyone who's trying to find a job, I think you should move towards that risk. If it means finding how you can express yourself. Those are the people I feel seem to work the most. The other thing I've noticed is whether it be a gallerist deciding what goes on the wall of a gallery, a booker who decides which comedians go up on stage at the clubs, or a recruiter at an ad agency or a design firm. Find a way around these idiots. I shouldn't call bookers idiots, but bookers are great. Their job, I think, is to keep things the same. Their job is to keep things usually pretty safe. What will sell is probably something that was similar to what was on the wall of the gallery prior. What will sell at an ad agency meeting is something that isn't too different, so it doesn't scare the client. And so I feel that the book, like, I'm trying to do comedy in New York. The bookers want you to do things a very certain way, but you can always create your own scene. The comedians I know who are working created their own independent shows. Same thing with the projects that I did. Create your own projects, create your own scene. Get a group of people together that you feel the same way that you do, and if you're not getting the exposure that you want, create your own platform. If it's art, rent out a space and show your own work. If it's comedy, put together your own show. I know a lot of people here are probably web developers, and I don't really know that world, but find a way to do your own thing with your own group of people. Find a crew. I feel you're much stronger in a pack. When I do comedy, I have a group of people, and we help each other, we push each other, we book each other's shows, we produce our own shows, and by doing that, we were able to get the attention of the gallerists, of the bookers of the clubs. Same thing with those art projects. I didn't go through a fine art background. I'm not trained as an artist, but I was able to get into the Brooklyn Museum and a couple of other really good galleries in New York City and San Francisco. So I encourage everyone to try to find those kind of networks of support. But the biggest thing that I feel that has happened, at least to me through this pandemic, was this doubling down on myself, betting on myself. I encourage you all to do that. If you made it through this terrible, terrible, terrible year, believe in yourself. You can do the things that you think that you can't do. Moving to Tennessee to do comedy, I was doing comedy steadily in New York as when I was doing ad work. And the pandemic really made me see, at least in the ad industry in America, it's incredibly abusive. I don't know what the work system is like here in Europe, but the hours are insane. It's always an emergency. Emails and phone calls at 9 o'clock at night for turnarounds the next morning. Is that something that you guys experience here? No? Okay, let's go to whatever country that person's from, please. And I found, now I wouldn't have done this if it weren't for the pandemic, but I told a lot of these people just to fuck off. And when I did, I found myself getting more work. It actually opened up a space to work for the types of people that were healthier. I'm sure some people have been in dysfunctional relationships with women or men. Yeah? And when you get rid of those people, it hurts at the beginning, but then you realize that you opened yourself up for the connections that are right. By telling these people who were pushing me to do work, I didn't even believe in this ad work to begin with, and now they were forcing me to work double time for the same amount of money, and I was able to tell these people, because I was really pushing myself to move towards comedy in a way that I never would have if it weren't for the pandemic. Moving to Tennessee for the thing that I think I'm 51 years old, becoming a comedian. I mean, it's nuts. It probably won't work, but maybe it will. I'm going to bet on myself. The pandemic really made me take a look at all the advice I was giving people during that quarantine thing. And I said, fuck that, I should take my own advice. And so I did, and now I live in Tennessee, like I said, and I hope that if you ever find yourself in America, that you'll pay me a visit, Got big bears there. And I want to thank you for listening. And I told Mark I'd like to, this is not really a Q&A, but if, this was a very last-minute thing to come here and talk about the journey that I've had during this pandemic. I'm sure we've all been through an insane couple of years, and we're probably still going through it. But if anything that I've talked about now, or the journey or the arc of these efforts that I've engaged myself in can help any of you or raises any questions, please just shout them out, and we can have a quick discussion. This is kind of like a chill end-of-the-night session. So if that's cool with you, can we do that? All right. Cool. And if you don't want to ask me a question now, you can always just get into. You can find me at this website. That's my website. You can get in touch with me. You can find my links there. Thanks.